Hey, this is PJ with CLK Supplies, and I'm going to be going over all the lock functions and what's available for the storefront door hardware. Now, sometimes this is known as Adams Rite style doors. Adams Rite is the OEM manufacturer of them. Sometimes they're known as aluminum storefront doors or glass storefront doors. They're really popular, and they're located really everywhere you go. I don't know, I think it's safe to say that you really can't drive a minute or two in any city without finding these locks everywhere. So if you're in the business of servicing, rekeying locks, then without a doubt you're going to be encountering this storefront hardware. Now, as what I'm going to do is we'll zoom the camera in, and I'm going to go over all the basic functions, where they're found, different things that you should know about each one of them, and then also some of the different accessories available. Let's get started. All right, now before we dive into the actual first function I want to go over, I just want to talk about the mortise cylinders for a moment. Okay, all of these style locks are going to come with a 1-inch mortise cylinder. Now, you can use an 1.1/8 mortise cylinder, but you're going to want to make sure you have some sort of collar that you're going to put on between the door and the face of the lock, because there will be a little gap. All right. Now, on all these cylinders, you have to also make sure you have the Adams Rite cam. It's known quite a bit by just AR for the Adams Rite cam. This is what it looks like here. So you want to make sure that this is the cam you have on the back of the lock, whether it's a 1-inch or an 1.1/8. Now, I want to point out that I've never seen a manufacturer sell these 1-inch mortise cylinders in particular, and not include one of these Adams Rite cams. So it is pretty popular, but if you're worried about it or you're interested, you just make sure you're going to see something about an Adams Rite cam or an AR cam, something like that. Now, a lot of the doors, when they come from the factory, they're going to have these really cheap pot metal cylinders in them. They're not going to look like this. They're not going to be all brass. And those cylinders, I mean, they can be really tough to rekey. From my personal experience, the Y1 keyway in particular, I mean, that thing's almost impossible to rekey and make work. So if you run into those really cheap die-cast style mortise cylinders, I highly recommend you just replace them with like a nice brass one like this. Okay, now one of the other functions I'll go over here in a minute is just going to be a T-turn. A lot of times on the inside of the door, you're either going to find another mortise cylinder or you're going to find a T-turn, and this is just a thumb turn. This is just a little thumb turn like this here that it's essentially a built-in key. All right, and you're just going to turn it and open it. Now let's go ahead and let's go over the first function. All right, now the first function I want to go over is going to be the deadlock. I would say this is probably the most common out of the box when doors are installed on the typical application. Okay, now the root part number for this is going to be 1850. And one form or another, you're going to see whether it's the Adams Rite themselves or one of the aftermarkets, they're going to have some form, some combination of that 1850 number on it. For example, you might see like an 1850 3132 for the 31/32. It's going to be something like that. Now, like all these locks, these different locks I'm going to be going over, the two most popular functions are going to be the 31/32 and the 1.1/8 back set. I'll put a link below in the notes to kind of go over more of that and how to identify which one you need. Now, as you can see here, now I'm going to go in and put this cover on, and just like this. So when you go up to a door and you open it up, this is what it's going to look like from the inside. There's going to be a little cover plate. You can get them in the aluminum color or in the Duro color like this. The first thing you want to do is take off these 3 screws. When you do that, this is what you're going to see. Now up top here, you're going to see there's 2 different set screws. These ones are flathead, and sometimes you're going to find them to be a little Allen wrench. Okay? Now, these set screws are actually what's going to hold this mortise cylinder in the door. Now, I hope you can see in this picture, in this video here, when you look at the threads on here that actually hold the mortise cylinder in place, there's only, let me count them here, 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's only 4 threads on this. Okay, so when you're putting in the mortise cylinders, you have to be extra careful, or you can easily just strip them out. Or sometimes if you're going to be working on or rekeying some locks on an existing one, maybe they were rough on it before, and you're either going to want to tap and die this out. There's a good tap and die set by HPC. I'll put a link in the notes below for that as well. Or you can just replace this whole unit. Okay. Now, let me go ahead and just grab a mortise cylinder here, and I'll thread this in and I'll show you how it works here. So what you want to do is when you first get the cylinder put in here, you always just want to get it set in and then turn it counterclockwise. I don't know, a half turn, quarter turn, something like that to get it aligned. Once you do that, just slowly start to thread it, okay? Oh, as you can see here, let me back off and start over here. So when you get it put on like that, you want to do a back turn to get it aligned, and then you start turning it in just like that. Now, if you start turning it clockwise like I did there a second ago and it's kind of rough, do not force it. Just back it off, try to get it realigned, and then start going. Once you start turning it clockwise to screw it in, it's going to go really easy and simple, just like you kind of see here in the picture. There's going to be no resistance. Now, when you screw it all the way in like this, okay, now you're going to want to back it off because right now it's pushing on the back of this arm here. So just go ahead and back it off a good half, quarter turn, maybe a full turn, because you want it perfectly straight up and down, just like that. Okay, let me take that key out so you can see. Just like that, perfectly straight up and down. Now, if you notice on the side here, okay, there's this big groove right here on these mortise cylinders. See that big groove right there? Now, there's one on each side. You'll see one there on the other side as well. Now, that's where this little set screw is going to be screwed in. So once you have it perfectly aligned, straight up and down, you can take our screwdriver here and we'll just screw this in. Now, let me get it in there. Now, there'll be some times where, like, I don't know, I feel like the depth of where this set screw goes in, okay, compared to like how long the set screws are, sometimes the set screws aren't long enough because the mortise cylinder has such big indents on the side here, okay? So there are longer ones available than what come with this. I'll put those in the links in the link below as well. Okay, but when you get it put in there, and hopefully you can see in the camera here, I mean, that set screws in there quite a bit. I mean, if that was just a little further, I wouldn't be able to actually use it. I'd have to get a longer one. Now, once that's in there and it's nice and tight, we'll go ahead and put the key in, and we'll turn it. Just like that, we'll pop it out. And so that's what the deadlock actually looks like, just like that, okay? Now, that's how you use it. You open it, you close it, and then on the inside, you're either gonna see another one of these mortise cylinders or you're gonna see one of these T-turns. Now, what we'll do is we'll do the same thing. We'll get this put on here. So we'll go ahead and set this in. We're going to turn it counterclockwise, a quarter to a half turn to get it aligned, and then we'll start turning it clockwise to get it put in there. Oop. We'll go ahead and start over here. So we'll get there counterclockwise, get it put in. Just like, whoop. There we go. Real life right here, right? Get it put in here, so we'll turn it counterclockwise, and we'll start turning it clockwise, just like that. All right. Get it screwed in all the way, just like that. Same thing, we're gonna back it off by, you know, a full turn or quarter turn, because we wanna get it perfectly aligned, and we wanna keep a little space inside there. Now, once we do that, we're going to make sure our set screws is nice and aligned, and then we're gonna go ahead and we're going to screw this set screw down just like that. So as you can see, let's see here, right here we have that set screw all the way in, that nice little groove on the mortise cylinder. Once we do that, put it on here, we'll go ahead and then we can operate it from that as well. So that's the deadlock. It's going to be the most common one you're going to see in just the very basic applications, typically how they come factory installed. All right, now the next one I want to go over is going to be the hook bolt. Now this one is pretty common as well, especially on like double doors, right? And that way this is going to have that hook bolt. It's going to come in, it's going to lock into the door, so you can't, you know, if the other one happens to be unlocked, you just can't, you know, push them open. Now, it's the same thing applies here, right? The mortise cylinders and the set screws, all of that is the same. Now, let me just go ahead and I'll install one on here so you can see what it looks like. And back this set screw off a little bit. We'll go ahead and get this mortise cylinder put in here just like we did on that Deadlock. We're gonna put it in, we're gonna set it in, we're gonna turn it counterclockwise to get it aligned, and then we'll start going forward, just like that. Like I said, I mean, I can't stress how much time or care you wanna take when you're doing that, okay? Now we'll get it put in there. I'm gonna get this set screw put down. Oop. All right, there we go. Got that set screw set on there just like that. Now we'll go and put the key in. We'll turn it. We'll pop open, and that's what that hook bolt looks like, just like that. Now the function's gonna be the same. You're gonna be able to put a T-turn or a mortise cylinder on the back here, and that's what the hook bolt looks like. Now I wanna go over the accessories now that you can use with both this Deadlock and with this hook bolt. And you know, I better mention on the hook bolt, the root part number is 1820. So once again, the most common sizes are gonna be 31/32 and 1 1/8, but the hook bolt root part number is 1820. Okay, now an accessory that sometimes you'll find on these type of locks, okay, for this Deadlock and the hook bolt is gonna be one of these indicators right here where it says open or close or locked or open or locked. It's gonna have some sort of verbiage like that, okay? Now it's gonna come with a little kit to install these, and if the door's not already prepped for it, you're gonna have to follow the instructions and you're gonna have to put a couple holes in the door. But is what you wanna really make sure on is the cylinder that you're working with actually has these two slits right down here, because that's where this gets hooked into. All right, it's going to be right here on these slits. So you want to make sure you have those if you're going to be installing or replacing a lock that has one of these little indicators on the door. So that's going to be the basic overview of these two, the Deadlock and the hook bolt. All right, let's move on to the dead latch. All right, now last but not least is going to be the dead latch. Now, this is a really popular option for a lot of storefront doors because of the accessories that you can put on this, okay? And this is also one of those, just like a normal, lock, when the door closes, this is going to remain closed until a key or a thumb turn or something is used to open it up, okay? Now, the handing on these, okay? I have a video, I'll put another link in the notes below on how to change the handing on these on the job, in the field, right? It's not that difficult. Once you try it and do it once, you'll have the confidence you need to do that, no problem. Okay, now same thing with this, right? When you take the faceplate off, that aluminum color or the Duro color faceplate, this is what you're gonna be looking at. And if you see up top here, these are gonna be your two little set screws that you're gonna be using to put on to tighten down the mortise cylinders or the T-turns. And let me just go ahead and put one on really quick. All right, so once again, I'm just gonna go ahead, I'm gonna put this mortise cylinder in here. I'm gonna turn it counterclockwise, a good half to a quarter turn to get it aligned, and then I'll start to thread it in. Now, like I said, and I know I've been making this point a lot, but I think it's just so important that when you start actually threading it in, if it's sticking and it's not working very good, well, you want to back it off and re-get it aligned, because you really don't want to strip it out, mess up the threads. Now, these ones are a little different, right? Like the other ones, you can kind of spin in until they stop. Well, these ones are gonna keep going. There's not like a little piece in there that's gonna stop it. So you just wanna get it perfectly in line so it's gonna align with the latch piece inside there. So you're gonna get it right to about there, and then you're gonna get it straight aligned just like that. Okay, once again on the side, you're gonna be able to see those little divots or grooves on the side, and that's going to allow where that set screw puts in here. Once again, they're either gonna be a Allen or they're gonna be a flathead. This is another flathead, so we'll go ahead and put this in here. and we'll tighten it down. A little more. Okay, just like that. Once we got that in place, we can put our key in. As you can see, when we turn the key, it's just gonna move it like that. There we go. Just gonna pop in the lock. I mean, it's kind of like, you know, this really reminds me of like a storeroom, a commercial storeroom function, right? The latch doesn't move unless the key moves, right? So as I move the key, it goes like that, and that's how those work. Now, on the inside, you can put a thumb turn. However, I want to go over the two accessories that are really common, which is what makes these dead latches really common. I'm sure you've seen them. Let's go over them. Now, the first is going to be this lever handle. Okay, so what's going to happen is this is going to mount on the inside of the door like this, and then you're going to push that down and turn. Okay, just like that. So that's how those work to open up. Now, the one thing that all of this whole mechanism operates off this little cam right here, okay? Now, you can buy these replacement cams, and a lot of times, and they're only a few dollars. And the thing is a lot of times if you go to a job and either this lever or the paddle handle I'll be going over next, if it's, you know, let's say broken or not working properly, most of the time, all you need to do is replace this little cam. It probably went bad. Now, you are going to have to make sure the handings are right on these, but they're real simple to fix. As you can see, there's a little R on this one, okay? Now, if it needs to be left-handed, all you have to do is take off that little tiny C-clip right there and flip this around, and then it's fixed, okay? So no matter if you get a right hand or a left hand, you can easily, you know, adjust them, no problem at all. Okay, so that's going to be the lever handle. I'm sure you've seen it. It also comes in Duro. It comes in the aluminum color. And the root part number for this lever handle is going to be 4560. All right? And that's what those look like. Now, the other popular one that you're going to see a lot of out in the field is going to be the paddle. Right, this paddle goes on the inside, so I mean a lot of people like to use their knees on these, right, and they end up breaking them a lot, and it's a popular service item that you're going to have to work on. Now, same thing on this paddle handle, okay? It's going to go on the inside of the cylinder here, or of the lock. It's going to be put on there, so when this paddle is pushed in, just like that, it's going to retract the latch here. Okay, now same thing with this cam. Okay, this same cam that works on this lever handle here also works on the paddle. And once again, you can switch the handing if you need to, but these things, if you're working a lot and if you're working on a lot of these storefront door locks, you definitely want to have some of these extra cams here. I'll put a link below to all these different functions in the notes where you can take a look at it. But that's the paddle handle. Now, as you can see on both this paddle handle and on this lever handle, okay, there are a couple extra holes required to be drilled and to installed. So if the door didn't come prepped like that and you're going to change it to it, these are the things you're going to have to be keeping in mind. Now, this paddle handle, the root of this part number is going to be 4521. Okay, so pretty much every manufacturer out there is using some form of that part number. And that's it. So that's the basics of the dead latch. All right, so that's a basic overview of all the popular functions for the storefront door handle. I hope the information was helpful and useful. Definitely, if you are going to be working on these style of doors, you're going to want to keep a couple of all these in stock. You're really going to want to make sure and form a good habit on how you're screwing in those mortise cylinders or T-turns and making sure you're not doing any extra damage and it'll last a long time. Remember, if you need the longer set screws when you're putting them in, those are available. You don't want to find yourself trying to do something weird to keep it in place because the set screw keeps falling in because the mortise cylinder groove's too deep. But yeah, hopefully I didn't get too caught in the weeds for you guys, but at the same time I went in depth enough to be helpful by going over the deadlock, the hook bolt, the dead latch, the lever handle, the paddle, and the lock indicator. I appreciate you guys watching, and we'll see you next time.